little bit beyond what you guys would probably do, but I will read a book about leadership or teamwork. We'll read about, like, there's a couple new books that I'm going to break out this year that I'll read excerpts from while they're stretching, right? And some of the guys that I've had come back say, those are some of the best part of practice. I love those things, the stories, etc. And it's all about getting them to be better people. Now, if they become great lacrosse players, awesome. That's great too, but that's not our primary focus. And to that end, we almost, occasionally it comes out, but we very rarely talk about winning, ever. I don't like it. I think it's bad on a lot of different levels, and I think it skews what their focus is. I'll talk more about the Suns' issues, but they were very win-focused, and the way the kids responded is not good. The pressure that they had on them was just not good. And literally, he was on the 21 team. I would rank that team in the top 4 in the nation at his age level. And they were ridiculous. And it imploded. One of the reasons, I think, was this huge pressure on winning. It was all about winning. We have to win this. If we don't beat this team, then blah, blah. Like, dude, they're like 12. Like, relax. It'll be fine. Everything's all good. So I think that's a huge part. And for us, and it's not a Donnelly original, and very few things are, but John Wooden was not a win guy. He was talking about, he always talked about what they needed to do to become better and better and better. And that's the kind of stuff that we want to talk about and that we focus on. Listen, winning helps in that it cements all of those lessons, right? So if you're teaching all this great stuff and you lose all the time, those lessons kind of get lost. But that's not the focus, right? Get the lessons, right? And then hopefully that'll bolster things and win. That's really what it started to do in our program as well, right? We started with fundamentals, and we built up. And guys, I can talk all day about fundamentals. That's one of the biggest things that I see guys doing. Things are not fundamentally correct when they get to us, and we have to retool a lot of their throwing, a lot of their catching, a lot of the things that I've talked to you guys before, so I'll brush over some of them when we get to that. And that's the kind of thing that I think is one of the biggest deals, right? Fundamentals, lacrosse IQ. We have I don't know how many of you guys pay attention, but a couple winning focused programs in our area, I will not mention names, but there is a program that has been building and building and building in our area in the pack that can't overcome hurdles that are pretty big and that they focus on year in and year out. And why I think they can't do it is because they focus on them year in and year out. Instead of focusing on that next step, how are we going to get better? How are we going to get better? They're focused on beating. One of them happens to be us, and one other program in the pack, and they can't get that hurdle because I think it's very mentally focused. And one of the Springford teams has been looking and just hammering home. We have to beat this team. We have to beat this team. We have to beat this one team, and they come up short every year because they're overhyping it. That's my opinion on it. And I think if we focus on what we're supposed to do, then let things take care of themselves and just play. Stop the pressure. I don't think pressure ever works, right? All the kids, they want to win, right? Every one of them. They want to catch the ball. Every one of them. They want to throw a good pass. They want to have a great shot. Every one of them, right? There's very few kids out there sabotaging the program, right? So if they're not doing the right things, it's probably not because they don't want to do the right things. It's probably because they made an error, and that's okay. This is what you did wrong. This is how we're going to fix it, period, right? Give them those positives, give them the negatives, but try to coach them along, teach them along without really, kind of hammering them. So some of the things that we should be developing really are skills, lacrosse IQ, and playing up to their ability, right? Being as good as they are capable of. Little Johnny may not be a Division I player. He may not even play on a varsity team one day. That's okay, right? Let him play hard. Let them be as good as they possibly can. And that's our focus. That's what we want them to do. And that's the way we want to kind of focus. So if you're interested in the whole Sun program, I think that one of the biggest things for travel teams is that they are all about winning, when I think they need to be more about teaching, about developing, and about getting them to do the right things on and off the field. There are renegades out there. For those of you who have been around for a while, Dukes is a huge one, right? They get the biggest guns, right, and they roll out and play. They practice for 2 weeks and then they just play. Maybe, right? Maybe their camp is whatever. And they teach them a little bit and then they just roll everybody. Why? Well, because they have, 20 Division I guys, right? And that's what they do. And I don't know that that's the best thing for them. We used to have guys that went off to Dukes and played with those big Dukes teams, but what I was finding was that those guys were coming back worse because they played for those programs and when they were better than if they would have stayed with a teaching type of program. So in response to that, and I did coach for Black Bear for a while. I was in that scene a little bit, and I discovered that, you know what, I'm coaching generally JV type players from everybody all over the place. Well, I can coach JV players that are going to be my JV players, that are going to be my varsity players. So we created something that's not totally new. Garnet Valley does it. There's some other, Summit does it in New Jersey. We have our own travel team. That we go to 4 different tournaments. We use our systems. We practice throughout the summer so that they can get better through our systems and in our program. And so that's kind of a response to all of that other kind of stuff that goes on. With Suns, they number 4 in the country was not good enough for them, right? So they decided to have more tryouts. They decided to re-invite 10 people from their roster of this top 4 team with automatic bids, one of which didn't even play in our system that summer. And then, and that just made everybody angry, right? We already had a lot of egos on the team, and when you're focused on trying to be the #1 team in the nation, a lot of things can go wrong. And I really encourage you not to focus on that. I would encourage you to focus on developing those guys, letting them have fun, because by the way, they're at that age where they should be having fun. Actually, scratch that. You should never stop having fun at lacrosse. If you're having issues with that, if they're not having fun, that's a big problem. Lacrosse is awesome. It's one of the best games out there. In fact, I think it is the best game out there. It's got a little bit of everything. And if you're not having fun, then we got some issues.
Kevin,
right?
when you said egos with that team, were those kids' egos?
There's kids and parent egos, yeah. Yeah. So some of the kids, most of the kids were pretty good, but there was a lot of parents that were interested in their kid being the only star on the team and the only guy that's scoring goals, and they're definitely, parents are problematic.
Do you mind if we interject during
Yeah,
the
please. No, that's why we're here.
That's why I didn't want to say anything.
I coached the 25s.
Yeah.
With Tommy, Kevin, Jim. And on the whole, I think all our kids were great to get along together.
Mm-hmm.
Egos, as far as the players, I don't see any of it.
Right.
The parents are our biggest issue.
And they will be no matter what.
And so,
you coach.
and it's not, I don't think it's so much like my Johnny is better than Jimmy and he deserves more playing time. But they're like so competitive and they are just focused on win, that they lose the kind of the bigger picture.
So, I've talked to Travis.
On the sidelines.
Yeah, that's a huge issue too. And guess what? That happens from our stands sometimes as well.
Happens a lot.
By the way,
Yeah.
Ed, I was at the Immaculata game last night.
Yeah,
The
but-
parents were bonkers.
Yeah.
I was.
There's a great Instagram clip this week.
I don't
of
know.
a mom running on the field after
I
she
saw
got
that.
plowed.
Kid got hit.
Plowed, and the mother runs on the field and pushes the big kid off of her. Yeah.
Is that right?
Oh, it was
Yeah.
horrible.
I
I
was.
was gonna say like 12th year, and mom's worse than dad's.
Yeah.
I was really. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was really surprised that, you know, a D3 college program, like, my view is like if once your kid finally gets there, like they're not going anywhere else. Sit down, enjoy it. Like there's no other team to make. But there was just wow. It was.
Right, but
It was
they were-
amazing.
They were like that as they got there, so
Yeah.
it makes
Yeah.
think they're gonna change. Once
Yeah.
the kid
So-
gets there.
I mean, this is kind of an aside, but again, I work at Springford as well in the school district, and the amount of anxiety issues that are happening in the schools right now are mind-boggling. And I think a big part of that stems from parents putting too much pressure on having to have, you know, hundreds across the board, having to be on the best travel team, not only being on the best travel team, but being on the you know, and being the best guy on the best travel team. So, I mean, I would encourage you. I mean, this is a philosophical thing, not a, hey, I want them to come to Springford thing. It's a, I would encourage you guys to try to weed them out and say, hey, listen, this is what we're about. We're about having fun. We're about developing kids. We're about making these kids the best lacrosse players and best kids they can be. And if that's not what you want to do, listen, there are 50 other things they can be playing in from here. Do you lose your leading scorer? Maybe. Does that make everything better and happier as your team? Probably. Because they're probably the leading scorer because they're putting their head down and going through 500 people because mom and dad are telling them from the sideline. And that, I mean, that definitely happened on the Suns team where people were
No, I
just
assume
telling
you have that, when you have your parents meeting towards the beginning of the year, when you're on the side and we're coaching and you're all sitting there, and I'm sure that's one of the subjects you bring up.
We do. Josh and I did it last year.
Last year I ran it,
Yeah.
and I did like I wrote like a little cheat sheet down, like, and some of the questions I knew I was going to forget, and that was one thing we addressed.
Right, but invariably, it's going to come up probably
Yeah.
about 3 practices later, it starts,
Yeah.
and then come the first game, it's.
well, they should
you know.
not, I mean, they shouldn't be saying a word in practice unless
But do you have
they're
like,
coached.
practically speaking, like
Yeah.
when your son was playing at, you know, when he was 10, 12, you know,
Yeah.
in that age group, would you pull that individual family aside and talk
Well,
to them?
so
and say,
first, so I was in a really weird spot when he started playing summer stuff. So I played with guys throughout that were heads of different things, and they're like, "Oh, Kevin, you need to bring Brendan over here, and you need to bring Brendan over here." And he's a goalie, by the way, which is an oddity in that everybody wants goalies, right? You need goalies. So they were all kind of pulling us in all these directions, and we were like, you know what? The heck with it. We're gonna have any one of his friends that wants to just play. We'll have like 3 practices. We'll go to 3 tournaments. We won't charge anybody except for the fees. We got them pennies, and we just kind of went, and it was awesome because all the parents knew, and we got killed, by the way. But all the parents on the sidelines knew what we were about. We were having fun. We were learning. We were doing all this stuff, and we were just getting our feet wet. After that, we went to Begataway, which is no longer in existence. But we went there because Brian Doherty was the guy there, and he's the best goalie ever, and the best probably the best teacher of goalies ever. And so we went with him. That was a disaster too. That like it was just not great. They admit that was one of their travesties, and but we stayed with him and not with the Begataway program. And then we went to the Suns because that's where we had known play. We played with a bunch of those guys. We went to Denver to play at the FIL youth tournament back then, and so they wanted to stay together. And Brendan played up. He played for the 21s because he was in that other age group with those guys. And So it happened there in Denver badly. Like one guy F-bombing everybody while holding his 2-year-old daughter in his arms. Yelling at.
I mean, we had some.
Yeah, we don't look out. You
Yeah.
got a coach, tell him, you guys step off.
Yeah.
No, I said, listen, I got a story. We can go neck and neck on championship game at SummerSlam last year.
Yeah.
I had a handful of parents. Like, I don't have a kid on the team. My son actually wrestles. He's actually the same age as Funny, but they thought it'd be cool to drink. To top off, SummerSlam's at a school.
Yeah.
Can't drink. I don't drink, so I have a very low tolerance for it. So they're on the sideline, championship game, screaming every F-bomb you could probably think of. I had a mother passed out on a lawn chair. Shocked.
That might be next parent meeting.
By the way, wearing our old English wear.
She's wearing it, passed out. I got parents throwing F-bombs. I got parents coaching. And the kids legitimately self-destructed. We went 5-0 in the championship game. And I mean, Sean, would you agree we got mopped? The kids were absolutely, the parents had them lost.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I mean, unfortunately, the parent that decided to erupt in the middle of the game, her kid, it's trickled down from, coaching 6th, 7th graders. The kids now pick up tendencies from the parents.
Yeah, for sure.
I had a kid that athletically, without a doubt, probably should be on my team, but attitude does not fit the group we have.
Yeah.
So they did not return this year. They didn't like my reasoning, and I got the same F-bombs and returned back to me.
Yeah.
I hope them well off, but they're one. I mean, they just didn't get anybody.
Yeah.
But it's unfortunate 'cause at this age, I went to Haverford. They don't, you get asked to go to school. Parents aren't allowed to come to practice.
Right.
You don't get the option. Like, do you want to watch your kid? No, it doesn't happen. Half the games are 5 hours away, so it kind of comes down to you don't want his parents to not sit on the sidelines because the kids can't drive themselves.
Right.
It's like to find a happy medium at this age, kind of going along with that. It's hard.
Yeah. And I mean, it helps to have numbers too. I mean, the numbers can dictate if you're going to sit Johnny because his parents play Bozo. So I mean, we've certainly had conversations, and I've gotten nasty emails and all those other kinds of things, and parents, not being happy with whatever. To email responses, it's almost always a hey, let's sit down, let's talk. I bring, an assistant coach. We sit down, listen. We tell them why their kid is not getting what they think they should be getting.
Can you stop for a second? Because I think I just learned something. Is it on purpose that you always bring someone else with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Today.
So
Yeah.
well,
So
no,
that's-
'cause I